Fellowship. This is awesome, guys, this fellowship. But we need to go ahead and get started with worship. Everybody come on in and get seated. We'll go ahead and get started. Tonight we're going to have Coda and AJ. They're going to be together doing one. We're going to have Alex and Rowan do one tonight. We hope that we can get more young people, more these young guys involved in year-round song leading for Last of Leaders. And so we're going to start going ahead, and the elders have told me to go ahead and start letting them lead 2 verses real quick. So I just wanted to let you know what we were trying to do, and we're going to need the parents' help too with this. All right, let's go ahead and get Cody and AJ, then Alex, then Rowan. Come up quick as you can, guys.
We'll be singing To Canaan's Land I'm on My Way, first and second verse, 8, 6, 7. If you have it, let us sing. To Canaan's land I want.
Number 753. Farther along, we'll be singing the first and last verse. Tempted and tried, we're oft made to wander. Why it should be thus all the day long, while there are others living about us, never molested, though in the wrong. Farther along. 548, go all the way up to Valley. 548.
You say 548? I have found a friend in Jesus.
There is something down into my soul. He's the lily of the valley, the bright and morning star. He's the fairest of 10,000 to my soul. My comfort in troubles is my strength. He tells me to run him to roll. He's the lily of the valley, the bright and morning star. He's the fairest of 10,000 to my soul. He's the fairest of 10,000 to my soul.
Somebody got him a fishing song back. You know, you're about to get your money's worth when somebody pulls an envelope out with their notes on it. All the men in the congregation should know this verse. If you don't, I don't know what's going on because it's vinyl art in the restroom. There's a vinyl art word in there, and it's the Proverbs 27:17 passage. That's iron sharpens iron as man sharpens another. I've heard this lesson a lot of times over the years, and it's always kind of applied towards make good friends, and they'll make you a good person. That's kind of what I've always kind of heard it applied. But I've been thinking about this thing this week and in my own personal life and how I need to handle things. Iron does sharpen iron, and that's good. But there's different ways of sharpening things, is there not? There's a tool's no good that's not sharp. Matter of fact, a tool is dangerous that's not sharp. You want it to be functional. If you have a slightly dull blade, you'll want to whetstone it down and get it sharpened up. But sometimes you have to take a grinder to something, right? Sometimes you have to really let the sparks fly in order to sharpen things up. I have damaged tools to the point to where I have to get a side grinder out to clean it up before I can really start sharpening it. And I was thinking about this week, I was thinking about influences in my life and how, I guess it's a family thing, but how my family kind of operates is people sharpen people in different ways. And I wasn't, what's the word they use now? I wasn't gentle parented as a child. My daddy sharpened in a different way. He was pretty blunt. He was a grinder, you know what I'm saying? He sharpened pretty aggressively most of the time. And so I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about how we do need to have friends that will push us in the right direction, that will nudge us in the right direction. And there's a time for grace, there's a time for being careful, and there's time to get out the grinder. Some people have gotten to the point where they need some aggressive sharpening. And that's on us. That's our obligation as friends. there's one version, I think it's NIV perhaps, that says, instead of a man, it says friends, right? And I've heard people use that one, but I think it's mankind. I think we are obligated to sharpen mankind. Again, that falls on us. So we need to be that friend. And if you don't think that's biblically accurate, just a couple of them I was thinking about today when I was driving, was I thought about Nathan. I thought about when Nathan went to David and he explained to David that through a story that David was this terrible person that had stole somebody's wife and had her husband murdered. And of course, he puts in a story about a sheep and a neighbor, and David's so mad, and he says, "Oh, God, it's terrible." And then Nathan says, "Well, it's you, buddy. It's you." That one always strikes me as hard, as an ouch moment where, boy, that hurt. And then today I hear a lot about, Jesus was he loved everybody. He was so passive and kind and never, he was just open to everybody. But Jesus was pretty rough, was he not? I can remember, like today driving again, I was thinking about because I was thinking about what I was going to say tonight, that the time that he probably crushed all of his disciples and friends' feelings when he said, "Oh, ye of little faith. You don't have any faith. What's wrong with y'all?" That's crushing. I'm sure that hurt their feelings. That's our responsibility. So tonight, I wanted to leave with you that there's going to be times in our lives, there's going to be times that we have friends, we have family, we have coworkers, we have those that need to get a straight shot from us, that we don't need to try to massage it and ease it into them. We have sometimes wake people up and be that grinder that we have to be sometimes. So I want to leave you that thought as you go throughout the rest of the week, as we go through the weekend. I'll be thinking about those times, as I have, when I know I've got this certain person in mind. I say I need to be a little more aggressive when I talk to them, because what I've been doing doesn't seem to be working. So let's keep that in mind. And if there's something we can help you with tonight, if you need the prayers of the church, we're always here for you, here to do anything we can do to help you in any way. If you need anything tonight, come forward and we stand and sing.
There is coming a day when no heartache shall come, no more clouds in the sky, no more tears to dim the eye. All is peace forevermore on the happy golden shore. What a day, glorious day that will be. What a day that will be when my Jesus I shall see, and I look upon his face, the one who saved me by his grace. When he takes me by the hand and leads me through the promised land. What a day, glorious day that will be.
So if you would be seated for just a moment. It is a pleasure to see each of you here tonight worshiping and serving our God. Please keep in mind we've got quite a few things on our upcoming events list. I guess our biggest thing is keep our graduates in mind. I think majority of them graduated last night. Audrey's is tonight, so be prayerful for them and their journey and starting off in life. We also want to let the kids' parents be aware May 24th. There's going to be a Nerf war here at the building. at 5 p.m. So bring your Nerf guns, bring your bullets. We said count the bullets, is that right? So parents maybe label how many you send with your kids. I'm not sure if that was real, but make sure they know to help pick up at the end. Also remember the preteen week for ICYC is May 25th through the 30th. There's also going to be a field day at Child Haven June the 2nd. Gary, is there any more information we need to know about that? Or okay. I guess if you'd like more information, see Gary about that. Also, if you would, keep in mind our upcoming homecoming with Philip Hines. Be letting people know that might, find that interesting, former members here or those that might have some kind of connection with our congregation. There's also going to be a bridal tea May 25th here at the East Walker Church of Christ for Darian O'Rear and McClendon Jones. So let's be mindful for them. There was a sign-up list in the foyer. I saw it a minute ago, but I think it disappeared on us. So if you know where that is, make sure it gets put back outside where everyone can find it. Do we have any other announcements that we need to make before we get started? Yes, ma'am. Okay, so anybody that would be willing, young men, I'm going to say this area, volunteers, but that's just my thought. If we could get some young men or some people to help us move tables to get set up for the shower this weekend, that would be appreciated. Again, keep in mind those that are on our sick list and prayer list. We have 2 little ones at home that are sick, so be prayerful for my wife and Kim. Are there any others that are sick that we need to make mention of? Definitely, if you would, be mindful for those in our congregation that have lost loved ones. It seems like over the last little bit, we've had quite a few that have suffered loss, so please keep them in your prayers as well. If nothing else, if you would, let's bow our heads and we'll go to our Father in prayer. Our dear righteous and almighty Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight thankful and grateful for this time that we have to learn about you, to study your word, to praise and honor you. We thank you for all of those of us that are here, their willingness, their desire to put you first in their life. We ask you to please be with us as we go throughout tonight in our studies, as we go throughout the rest of our week, that you would help us to put the things that we learn and study into practice in our life. We thank you so much for Jesus, and we ask you to please forgive us of our sins if there's anything in our life amiss. Again, we thank you for Jesus, and it's in his name we pray. Amen. All right, y'all can go to class now. All right, we are finishing up our study in Exodus tonight, or at least that's my plan, my hope. So, as we're finishing this up, again, I want you to keep in mind where we started. Go back to the very beginning of the book. Where were the people of Israel? In Egypt, in captivity. Now, what kind of captivity was this? Slaves, burdensome. It wasn't just you got a good job and he won't let you go. They were essentially being beaten and their kids were being killed. They were being forced to work, themselves to death. And what were the people of Israel doing? They were complaining, yes. Look at this burden, this weight that's on us. So they cried out to God for deliverance. God, this burden on us is too heavy. It's too much for us to bear. And Moses came along, right? Now, we're introduced to him as a baby, and then we're shown how he gets into Pharaoh's court, then thrown out into the desert, then brought back. Again, I think we can see God's providence in that back and forth there. Then the people, through the 10 plagues, are let go. Egypt's army is destroyed. They are traveling down We'll go ahead and turn to that on our map. They're traveling down now out of Egypt, kind of down across the peninsula of Sinai. And what else were they doing this whole time? Still complaining. We're going to try, we're going to study the next two books, Leviticus and Numbers, but we're going to try to chop it up in a way we can present it, the information, so it's not so dry maybe, or it's not just law after law. But in that section, in Numbers 9 or 10-ish, we get a little bit more information on the complaints, and I like the one there, and I'll go ahead and use it. They complain about how they don't have the same melons, the leeks, the onions that were in Egypt. I just think it's neat that we had this great food back here, and now we don't have those, but we do have the quail we can pluck out of the air, the manna we just kind of gather up in the morning, and there's going to be water for us wherever we go, right? But what are we complaining about? The melons. Say again. All right. It seems to be these little things that don't really matter, right? But, so they get there, they're on the mount, and remember we have in this next thought all this back and forth of Moses. In chapter 19, he kind of starts that ascent or goes partway up the mountain, and then we have that back down to warn the people, back up and down, and then the golden calf, he comes back down, warns them, breaks the tablets, goes back up again, and I want us to hit or really focus on the last few chapters of this book. And then there's about 3 or 4 things that I want us to, if you haven't paid attention at all throughout any of these classes, just pay attention to those last few things, because it'll be all that we've talked about kind of summed up. But chapter 37 is the building of the temple, or at least the pieces of this temple. And we talked about this a little bit at the end last week, and then even some on that Sunday morning that I filled in. But the ark, what comes to your mind when you think about the Ark of the Covenant, or the ark that is built here? I think I mentioned Indiana Jones last time, but all right, it is so precious and holy to God that you can't even touch it. Forward to when David tries to move it and somebody does what? Touches it, and he's struck dead at that moment. Even though he thought he was doing something good and righteous, stopping the ark from falling, it wasn't according to the way that God wanted the ark to move, so he was struck dead. Now, we talked about last week this idea of a pattern. Did God have a pattern for all of these things that are listed up here, all of these buildings and garments and instruments and items of worship? Exactly. It had the dimensions. It had, this is the wood, layer it this way. We'll talk about this in a little bit. I think it's chapter 36 that talks about the craftsman. I want to go back to that and hit it real hard for a moment. But it talks about how God inspired them and gave them the abilities to do this. The point is, God gave these people exactly what they needed to honor and worship and glorify Him, right? They had what they needed in order for God to be their God. Now bring that forward to us today. Do we have what we need today in order for God to be our God? Do we have a pattern that we're supposed to follow? Or at least guidelines that we're supposed to, fashion ourselves to fit? The image here is that God cared so much about all of these little fine details of the temple because it was His dwelling place, right? Keep in your mind that image of Mount Sinai, that, smoky, fiery presence of God that comes down. It gives the kind of the indication of this thunderous lightning storm that is sitting on top of this mountain. And He's saying that is going to dwell in this place that we build. Now, look at chapter 36, if you would. Let's look at verse 1 first of all, and then we might skip down just a tad. All right, it says Bezalel. Anybody else want to try to pronounce that? This first guy, Bezalel, and I meant to sit down and practice these before class, but Aholiab. Thank you, sir. So Bezalel and Aholiab, and who? So these two men specifically, but also what's included with them. All right, the skilled craftsmen, right? Now, who are these guys? What do we know about them? It's not a trick question. All right. They were skilled at a craft. Exactly. Look at, again, these different items that are listed here and think about what skill, what talent, what ability would I need in order to make these. Exactly, making, sewing, tying these sheets of ram skins together, maybe dyeing. I mean, again, think of what goes into building a house, what goes into fashioning clothing. The gemstones that are working there, the gold that's being worked and crafted. And notice what it says. Every craftsman whom the Lord did what? Put skill and, what's the other word? Intelligence. Now, is there a difference between these two words? Skill and intelligence? Skill is the knowledge about how to do something. I have seen some men that are very skilled, people that can do things that I have no way to get my hands to do, to fashion, to build. But I guess if you were to use the standard academic metric, I think I would be higher than them on that scale. But then I've seen some people that are really intelligent, but they don't have really anything they can do, right? We might use the thought common sense versus book smarts. Maybe that's the idea with this. People skills. The image with this that's being presented is God gave these men the knowledge to understand what they were doing and how to do it, but also the physical ability to do the task. So, again, let's just focus on the ark itself, because for me, that's kind of when I think of the tabernacle, the temple, that's what my mind jumps to. But think about you being one of these two guys, and you're responsible for crafting the ark. Maybe you're a goldsmith. The other guy built the box, and now it's my responsibility to make the sheets of metal, to attach them, to carve the pieces or the imagery out on the side. If you were that guy, or that person that had that skill and ability, how much effort, focus, motivation would you put into that? I'm going to be sitting there going, okay, this is going to be something that my kids' kids are going to be looking at, when it's brought out to those different occasions, that this is going to be honoring God my entire life. And I've always liked that image of the craftsman here, because it gives us the thought of these people were working to build something that would serve and honor God, right? According to the pattern He gave, but with the talents and abilities that He provided them. That's a good way to think. They wanted to give their best. All right? This was going to be everything that they could offer God in this item that they crafted. All right? You jumped ahead exactly where I was going, didn't you? No, you're great. That's where we're going. We are lively what? Stones built up together for this habitation of God, right? In the New Testament, it is the individual that are the materials, the stones, the skins, the whatever it is. And we are taken and we are placed in that dwelling place of God. So, think of it this way. What am I crafting here? Imagine yourself as one of these instruments or a block of stone that's placed in this. Are you going to be a stone that's crumbling on the inside, that's, faulted and cracked, or are you going to intricately carve as much detail and make it as the most beautiful thing that you can present to God? Sometimes it's easy for us to look at things like this, and maybe even the idea of craftsmen and doing something physical, and say, there's something great. There's something, they've accomplished something. But it's harder to see what we look like on the inside, right? To make sure that we're, as we talked about the first few months of this year, the idea of casting out the stones or breaking up the hard ground in our hearts. Here, we have this understanding God wants them to do something, but He's given them everything they need to accomplish it. Did Jesus command us to do something today in service or in work for His church or His temple? All right. Maybe go to the parable of the talents, that idea of if we have something, we're supposed to add to it and grow. Any other thoughts with that one? All right, so the question then becomes, what are we doing? I think when we move past, or when we move into the understanding of this is something I'm capable of, we move past maybe the beginner or the newness of it, we understand what we're doing, or at least in part. Then that starts moving it from the, this is something I'm just not capable of, and now it's something that I'm growing in my ability to do. God has given us what we need. Don't you think? Don't you think that's how the New Testament presents our walk in this world? That yes, it's going to be trouble, yes, there's going to be obstacles, yes, there's going to be Satan and that and this, but who is always going to be right here beside me as long as I'm what I need to be? Who is going to pick me up and carry me when I can't make it? The footprints in the sand, that's the image, right? Here, God said, I want you to build this great and glorious thing. I can't imagine the stress that some of those guys were under, or some of those people were under while making some of these pieces. Most of y'all know I did some handyman construction work before I got here, and some of those jobs were very, very anxiety filled. There were a few jobs where, for whatever reason, the homeowner stood right there next to me the whole time I was working. You guys know how that feels? Pray for him, pray for self, pray for whatever the piece is you're working on. That's the image. There they're sitting and they're probably praying, and God help me to. But God said, I've given you what you need. And the image I want us to see is that God has given us what we need to do whatever job or to overcome whatever obstacle Satan places in our life. He did it for them, and the New Testament echoes that same thought for us. All right, so again, we go through this and we make all of these things, we get them all put together and listed. Now, if you would, look at chapter 40. This is, we didn't get a chance to really look at it last week, so I'd like to spend, I guess, majority of my thoughts here. Actually, let's look at the end of chapter 39 very quickly. Exodus chapter 39. In this chapter, we have essentially everything is completed. The temple itself, the pieces, the individual parts are all finished. Now, I think it's somewhere here it talks about how it's the second year of the first month. So again, we've been at Mount Sinai now for about a year, or at least traveling down from Egypt and at Mount Sinai for about a year. And they've just now completed all of these things. End of chapter 39, let's look at verse 42. And it says, according to all that the Lord had commanded Moses, so the people of Israel had done. What amount of it? All the work. 43. And Moses saw all the work, and behold, they had done it. And the Lord commanded, as the Lord had commanded, so had they done it. Then Moses blessed them. The end of 39, what is the understanding? What have the Israelites done at this moment in their relationship with God? They've done right. They've done everything that He said. They have obeyed, however you want to understand that thought. They're doing what God said. Now, contrast this with our last major event with the people, right? What had they done? They had complained. They had thrown the gold into the pot. The golden calf had jumped out, right? And they had been worshiping it. 3,000 had died. The Levites had gone through and cut them down. And now, here the majority stand, or at least the ones that are left, are standing there, and Moses says, we've done it all. We have finally completed what we came here to do. Now, why do you think it is important for us to kind of hit on that thought? That the people, that Moses completed the work. It's the idea of faithfulness. They did what they were asked. Say yours again, sir. The idea of going to heaven. It's the concept of God said to make, I've already forgotten the number, so forgive me, 50 or 40 rings, brass rings to go on the temple. But I only want to make 38. I just feel lazy that day. Have they done all that has been commanded? Now again, for us standing here, that might look petty, that might look small, that might not look like much, right? It's just a ring, or maybe it was just a stone, but why did God care? Why do you think God cared? Okay, and what is that? Okay, for His glory, to perfect us, obedience. For me, that one kind of hits the closest. Because for me, what has God done for these people? When we read this whole chapter, what has God done for them? That's the best way to sum it up, right? I mean, again, trapped in Egypt. They're complaining. They're dying. There's no hope for them. Moses, who was trying to save them, and what did the Hebrews say to him that he saved? Are you going to do what to me now? Are you going to judge us and murder us like you did that guy? Seemed like they didn't want Moses, or at least that one didn't. And so now, through all of this, God has provided, God has protected, God has miracle after miracle, day after day, and what are they doing? They seem to not get it, right? So, for us, the important note here is Moses, the people, at this point recognize, I'm not going to mess up anymore. After that event with the golden calf, their minds were changed, at least for the moment, to be focused back on God. Sadly, like I said, in Leviticus and Numbers, we'll see a few more. That'll be kind of while they're at the foot of the mountain and then while they're on that journey as well, but several other failings and complainings as well. But doesn't that kind of mirror our life too? Any of you ever stumble and fall today or maybe tomorrow or next week? Or we don't plan on it, right? But maybe we go through something and we start complaining. God, why this? Or why didn't this happen to them and not me, right? Where's the water? Isn't God going to provide for us? It's easy for us to fall into this trap, but the understanding is we still need to do everything that God asks of us. Come forward. You because in that instance, there's a phrasing there that I think it says that since you denied our glory or took our glory, there's a phrasing there with the word glory in the account that you mentioned, and we'll make mention of it or come to it sometime. But the thought is Moses knew what to do and chose not to, or let his anger lead him to do something he shouldn't, and he had to deal with the consequences. If I choose sin today, do I have to deal with the consequences of it? Now, maybe I have my, the moment of the Levites where they're going through the camp and killing people, and maybe I have my moment of fear and I repent and I come back to God. Can I be saved at that moment? Can I come back to Him? Absolutely. But I can also leave Him again, right? I want us to see at the end of this chapter, God has finally, or at least at this moment, gotten them to see, you belong to me. Maybe, at least for this last little bit, maybe it's through this image of fear, this great image presence on the mountain with what occurs with the Levites and them going through the camp and killing it. But the thought is God had always taken care of and protected them. And they just keep seeming to fall back onto what they used to have. But again, that's what we tend to do a lot as well. Here's what I had when I was younger. Here's what I had at this job or that job. Or when I was not worried about godly things, we get the understanding. Yes, sir. Like the date for it? From what I recall, I want to say it's about 3 months from the time of the crossing of the Red Sea until they get down to Mount Sinai. Right. So it should have been fresh on their mind, all of the things that happened. And again, when they go into the temple, they're giving all of the gold and wealth that they had just stole and plundered from Egypt. So it's not like they should have forgotten by this moment. Exactly. If you skip over in chapter 40 to verse 16, again, it's a recounting of that same thought. Moses did exactly what the Lord had commanded him. Then you skip down to verse 33. It's the same thought there. Moses did what the Lord had commanded him, or finished the work the Lord had commanded him. Why would we have this again 3 times in a chapter and a half, back to back? It's important that we know he finished it. And if you look at the way it's phrased in verses 16 through 30, it's this thought of Moses. Either Moses did it all himself, which seems unlikely, or Moses watched as the people put it all together. That one seems more like the likely, or like what happens, because it talks about putting the big pieces of furniture in place too. So Moses here is essentially going through and he's looking at everything saying, okay, what did God say? You know, here's that ring, here's this curtain, is it? We're given the image of Moses is checking to make sure the people are doing what they should. That the people have done what God has asked of them. And I think we see some echoes of that in the New Testament, right? Elders guiding us to, say, here, stay with the Word, or this is what to be taught on this thing, here's what the gospel teaches on this issue. It's the same image there. Now, very quickly, I want to try to run through these 4 thoughts. Now, like I said, if you haven't been paying attention, pay attention now, because this is everything we've talked about for the last few months squished into a few thoughts. The first one is God keeps His promises. Now, this goes back really to the middle of chapter, or Genesis 14, 15, 16, somewhere in there, where God starts that covenant or begins that covenant with Abraham. But somebody read Genesis 50 and verse 25 for me. Genesis 50, verse 25.
Then Joseph made the sons of Israel swear, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones for you.
All right, we go back to, remember, we were, for lads to leaders, talking about Genesis. Joseph, at the very end of his life, said what to the people? Don't leave me in this foreign land. When God comes to take you back, make sure you take my bones with you. That's a promise that He's making, right? He's making a prophetic statement in this. Now, God's already promised that He was going to give them the land of the Canaan earlier on, but Joseph is saying to his people, don't forget, we're out of here at some point. 430 years later, took them a year, several weeks for the plagues, then several months of travel for them to get away from Egypt. But God kept His promises. Now, they don't have the land yet, but that's the next thing that we're going to see fulfilled. All right, this one we've kind of, beat around quite a bit, and that is the idea of God expects us to obey. Somebody read Exodus 36 and verse 1. Exodus 36 and verse 1. See who will attempt the names. See if you were listening earlier. I'll Behalel and Oholib. Now you can finish the rest of it. Has God given you something, a talent, an ability, something that you not even excel at, but are competent enough in to serve Him with? Again, I want you to think back to the contributions part of it. And it's in chapter 36, somewhere around verse 11, a little bit ahead of that. But it talks about how they gave to the point that the craftsmen were like, stop, you know, we can't do anything with this. Maybe you're just a great hunter, right? Maybe you have all the ram skins. Maybe you're that seamstress that's got great, sewing skills. We all have some way that we can serve, something that God has given us, whether great or small, whether it's that one talent or the 5 talents. But we have to find the way that we can serve Him for us to obey Him. Can all of you stand up here and preach and teach a class like this? Does God expect you to? Does God expect you to talk to the people that you come in contact with on a daily basis about God? The people you see at the grocery store, the guy that's broken down on the side of the road, the whatever. Do what you are able to. These craftsmen, God said here, I've given you the information, I've given you the talents, now use them, take care of this work. All right, next thought. Somebody turn to Exodus 19 and read us 21 through 24. This is God should be feared. Exodus 19, 21 through 24.
The Lord said to him, "Go down and warn the people so they do not force their way through the sea, the Lord, and many of them perish. Even the priests who approach the Lord must consecrate themselves, or the Lord will break out against them." And Moses said to the Lord, "The people cannot come up Mount Sinai, because you yourself warned us. Put limits around the mountain and set it apart as holy." And the Lord replied, "Go down and bring Aaron up with you, but the priests and the people must not force their way through to come up to the Lord, or he will break out against them."
I think I kind of hit around this when we went by this one, but this passage has always been a unique instance to me because it seems like the people were trying to get closer to God, right? Moses, go down and warn them, put the hedge, put this line so they won't be destroyed. But then there's that next thought, make sure the priests are consecrated. It's almost like he's saying if the priests are consecrated, they can get a little closer. He's saying if you get close to me without being consecrated, without my allowance, without the proper mindset while you do it, you're going to be destroyed. We've been mentioning Uzzah when he reached up and touched the ark. Was he trying to do something, noble in his mind? Absolutely. Save God's, divinely crafted place of residence where His presence came and dwelt, right? I'm just going to stop it. But he was struck dead because of it, because, like you'd mentioned, God had a very specific way. I want it carried by this group of Levites, this family. I want them to carry it on this pole, so God had already taken care of the thought that it's not going to be, because if I'm going to carry the ark, don't you think I'm going to be real careful about where my feet are? It shouldn't have been being transported how it was. So today, does the New Testament give us any indication that God should be feared? That there is something that we should be mindful of in how we carry ourselves, how we present ourselves, how we're fashioning our life, so that on the day of judgment we can hear that phrase, "Well done, good and faithful servant." That's it, right? The writer of Ecclesiastes, this thought of that's the whole duty of man. Fear God, keep His commandments. We respect God's position of authority, right? I'm not the creator, the maker of the universe, He is. I know that I don't know the way out of life and out of everything. I know I can't escape Egypt on my own, right? But the Creator can. And that's this last thought. God is what? Who can stand against God? Nothing. No man, great or small. Remember, he tried to kill all the babies. God protected the one, or well, he protected more than that, but he protected the one that was going to end up in Pharaoh's house, was going to end up leading the people out. All of those different gods of Egypt, right? We kind of talked in detail about them. How they had a god for the Nile, and a god for death, and a god for flies, and a god for cattle. And God said, no, I'm the one in control. Pray to him, worship him however you want, but it's not going to matter. Then with the army that was chasing them, a physical fighting force, was God's power greater than that? Then 2 million people, again, that's the number that I use, 600,000 fighting men, double that for wives, and then add some more for kids. Good guesstimate. They're in the desert, thirsty and hungry. And what does God do? They're facing the physical problems of life, what the body needs, and God takes care of it. Then when they're at the foot of the mountain, and they're facing maybe their own struggles and doubts, what did they say at the bottom of the mountain? Moses went up there, and what happened to him? Well, after he came down, yes, but the thought was he went up there and they were like, well, he must be dead, so let's worship the golden calf, right? I mean, and God said, no, I'm greater than that calf that you said jumped out. The point is, this chapter shows this nation of Israel. It binds them together as a group, and it binds them to God as their Savior. This God that saved us and led us out of Egypt, this is the same God that's now going to lead us into this land that he promised us. So, like I said, we're going to be moving forward into Leviticus and Numbers, still figuring out the approach on that, but just know that we're going to be making note of some of the laws that they were practicing under the Old Testament. Appreciate your time and attention. Any thoughts before we close? All right, y'all have a good week.